ever made a decision, right, that like seemed perfect, at least in theory, but then when you try to put it into practice, it just totally bombed.
Happens all the time.
Right. And like today we're diving into these it depends
Yeah, the
factors.
boundary conditions.
Boundary conditions, right?
I can make or break even the most well thought out plans.
Absolutely.
These it depends are everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of assume things work the same way across the board, but
Not always the case.
no,
Context matters.
it really does
Big time.
a lot.
And we've got this pretty dense academic article by Gonzalez Moulet and Aguinis to guide us through this. Aguinis, like the beer.
Oh, okay.
And they did a deep dive, like we are, into 63 meta-analysis studies. So studies of studies to see how researchers are tackling these it depends situations.
What's so interesting is that even in the scientific world, there's a lot of confusion about how to pinpoint these boundary conditions.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think scientists would have this figured out by now.
You would think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the article points out that many studies fall short, especially when they use a technique called metaregression. Before you, like, zone out, think of it this way. Imagine you're trying to figure out if a new leadership training program actually boosts team performance, right?
Metaregression lets you analyze a bunch of studies on that leadership training, not just one. But instead of looking at, like, individual people, you're looking at each study as a data point.
Got it. So you're, like, zooming out to see the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can see trends, see if, say, the training's effectiveness depends on, I don't know, like, the type of industry or the size of the team.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the article reveals that a lot of researchers using metaregression are making some pretty big mistakes.
Mistakes. Oh, okay. Now I'm really intrigued. What kind of mistakes?
Well, for one, a lot of studies don't have enough data points. Not enough studies even to draw good conclusions from. Imagine testing a new drug on just 5 people.
Yeah.
Not very convincing, right?
No, not at all. That's like trying to judge a restaurant based on one bite of a single dish.
Right.
You need more data to
Yeah.
get the full picture.
Need the whole meal.
Exactly.
But-
And that's just one of the issues the article highlights.
Mm.
Another common mistake is overlooking something called heterogeneity. And think of it this way, right? Like, if you are trying to understand customer preferences for a new product, you wouldn't just survey people from the same neighborhood, would you?
Of course not.
No, you want a diverse sample to get the full range of opinions.
Yeah.
So heterogeneity basically means having a good mix of studies. Right?
Exactly. You need that variety in the studies you're analyzing. To uncover those, it depends insights. If all the studies are too similar, you might miss really crucial contextual factors.
Interesting. The article actually goes into a few ways that researchers can actually measure that heterogeneity. But even if they have enough data, right, and a good mix of studies, they still need to choose the right analytical approach.
Right. It's like picking the right cooking technique for different dishes, like grilling for steak, slow cooking for stew. The same goes for metaregression. There are different models, like fixed effects and mixed effects, each with its own set of assumptions and best use scenarios.
Okay, so choosing the wrong model
Yeah.
could seriously skew the results. It's kind of like using a blender to chop onions. Technically possible, but not ideal,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the article found that a lot of studies didn't choose the most appropriate model, which could lead to some pretty misleading conclusions. Wow, this is getting pretty intense. So even in the world of research, where we expect, rigorous methods, there's a lot of room for error when it comes to understanding these it depends situations.
There is, yeah. And it's not just about choosing the right model. Researchers need to be transparent about their methods, too, like show their work so others can understand and even replicate their findings.
That's a great point. It's like they're saying, trust but verify. You don't just blindly accept research findings. You got to, look under the hood, see how they got there.
Right.
Informed skepticism is key.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's something you as a listener can practice, too. So next time you see a headline about, a groundbreaking study, remember to dig a little deeper, right? How did they actually conduct that research? What were the limitations?
Good point.
Speaking of limitations, the article points out that even when researchers do everything right with metaregression, there's still some inherent challenges. Like, what about situations where multiple findings come from the same study?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's called dependent effect sizes. And it's a tricky issue. Imagine Counting the same vote twice, it can really distort the overall results.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So even with these advanced techniques,
Huh.
like metaregression, there's still room for improvement and things to,
Yeah.
watch out for.
Sure. But even with those limitations, metaregression gives us a really powerful tool for understanding these it depends situations. It's about looking beyond just the surface level and recognizing that the strength of a relationship between things can really vary depending on the context.
Right. And that brings up another point. Effect size.
Yes.
Just because a finding is statistically significant doesn't mean it's practically significant.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You might find a statistically significant correlation between, let's say, the number of books someone owns and their IQ score. But that doesn't mean buying more books is going to automatically make you smarter.
Okay, that's a hilarious example, but I get it. So a small effect might be statistically detectable, but does it actually matter in the real world? Like, how much of a difference does it make?
Exactly. That's why it's so important to consider both unstandardized and standardized coefficients. Unstandardized coefficients tell you how much change you can expect in one variable based on a change in another. So they give you concrete numbers.
So if I'm a manager trying to decide whether to implement a new training program, unstandardized coefficients would show me, I don't know, how much employee performance is expected to increase for every hour of training.
Right. It gives you that tangible measure of the impact.
Okay.
But standardized coefficients are important, too, because they let you compare the relative strength of different factors.
Got it. So I could compare, the impact of the training program to, let's say, the effect of changing the team's incentive structure, even though those are measured in different units.
Exactly. It helps you to prioritize and allocate resources effectively.
Interesting.
Gonzalez-Moulet and Aguinis also emphasize the importance of providing all the ingredients, so to speak, of your research.
Okay, you mean the descriptive statistics, like the average age or experience level
of the participants in each study. Yes. And intercorrelations between variables, like how strongly job satisfaction and job performance are related in a particular data set. It's about giving other researchers the full picture so they can really evaluate the findings.
Transparency is key. And speaking of transparency, Gonzalez-Moulet and Aguinis actually walk us through two of their own metaregression studies in the article.
Yeah. They looked at the relationship between extroversion and job performance. And extroversion and job satisfaction. And guess what? The results actually differed, depending on whether they used one. A fixed effects or mixed effects model.
Interesting.
So even they found that the choice of model can make a big difference in the outcome. It really underscores the importance of selecting the right tool for the job.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even with the best intentions, researchers can make choices that influence their findings.
Right.
And that's why understanding these nuances is so important, even if you're not a scientist yourself. So what does all this mean for our listeners, whether they're managers, researchers, or just curious minds?
It means that we need to approach research findings and knowledge in general with a healthy dose of skepticism. It's about understanding that. Things are rarely black and white. There are always contextual factors, those it depends scenarios that can make a huge difference.
We need to think critically, ask questions, and consider those nuances, especially when we're making decisions that affect ourselves and others.
So the next time you read a headline claiming some definitive answer, remember that there's probably more to the story. Dig deeper, consider the context, and embrace the complexity.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the nitty-gritty of metaregression to the broader implications of boundary conditions. But we're not quite done yet.
We're not.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the fascinating world of boundary conditions.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We have.
From those it depends situations that pop up everywhere to the intricacies of metaregression and the importance of, informed skepticism.
Yeah, we've even learned that choosing the right research approach is kind of like picking the right cooking technique. Who knew?
Exactly.
But here's the real kicker. Even with the most advanced techniques, we're probably still missing a ton of those it depends factors.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, really? So even with all this effort to be, thorough and rigorous, there are still blind spots.
Absolutely. The article points out that there are always more variables at play, more contextual nuances
Yeah.
that we haven't even considered. It's like trying to map the entire universe we can only see so far with our current instruments.
So it's not just about acknowledging that, context matters. It's also about, like, recognizing
Yeah.
the limits of our knowledge and staying open to new discoveries.
Right, exactly. It's about embracing humility and curiosity. And that brings us to the final kind of thought-provoking question that the article poses. What it depends factors haven't we even considered yet? Not just in, research, but in our own lives, in our work, in our relationships.
That's a powerful question. It's like a reminder to constantly challenge our assumptions and look beyond the surface. What hidden contextual factors are shaping our decisions, our beliefs, our understanding of the world.
And those hidden factors, they can have a huge impact. Think about, like, a leadership style that works wonders in one company but completely fails in another, or a parenting strategy that's really effective with one child but totally backfires with another. It all comes down to context.
Right. So it's not enough to just look for like the right answers.
Yeah.
We need to constantly ask ourselves, right for whom?
Yeah.
Right in what situation?
Exactly. And that kind of
Matching.
critical thinking, that awareness of context is really crucial for,
Yeah.
making informed decisions, navigating those complex situations, and even just understanding each other better.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into boundary conditions, let's remember that the world is a messy, nuanced place. There's rarely a one-size-fits-all solution.
Embrace it depends.
Yeah.
Stay curious and keep challenging those assumptions. That's how we learn, grow, and navigate the complexities of life.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the research that matters. Until then, keep those brains buzzing.